of power, according to which God, in order to govern absolutely, must act as if the creatures were governing themselves, strongly influenced authors such as Rousseau. Rousseau was deeply influenced by a French theoretician of the Providence, Malebranche, who is the one who invented the theory of volonté générale, general will. And in this way, especially through Rousseau, this idea became the theological paradigm of modern democratic theory, according to which the governed govern themselves. So the fifth and last point, that is to say, with that has to do with the vicarious character of governmental power. Governmental power, governments, is essentially a vicarious power. In which sense? In the eschatological messianic kingdom of which Paul speaks in the first letter to the Corinthians, Christ receives his power from the Father and will therefore, after subduing all earthly power, return the kingdom to him. And Paul says exactly like that. The Son will reign up the moment he destroys all earthly power, then he will give back the power to the Father. But we saw, so the messianic power of Christ seems thus to be a vicarious power exerted in the name of the Father. But we saw that in the Trinitarian economy, each divine person, and especially the Son, is anarchical, has no foundation in the Father. The intra-Trinitarian relation between the Father and the Son can be considered in this sense as the theological paradigm of the intrinsically vicarious character of governmental power. Trinitarian economy is the expression of an anarchical power which moves to and fro through the divine persons according to an essentially vicarious paradigm. So there is no way to assign to one person the origin and foundation of power. Power has a Trinitarian form, circulates vicariously in this form. And this is why the supreme sovereign power in the history of Western politics presents itself as vicarious. You probably know that in the history of Western politics, especially the moment of the struggle between the Pope and the Emperor, both the Emperor and the Pope claimed for themselves the title of Vicarius Christi, or Vicarius Dei, and the Vicar of Christ, the Vicar of God. So the Emperor would say, I am the Vicar of God. And the Pope said, no, I am the Vicar of God. But more deeply, this is also why in Western public law, the source of power is in the last resort impossible to ascribe, and moves always in a circle between, for instance, a very important point, constitutive and constituted power, sovereignty and execution, legislation and police. And in the end, it's impossible to ascribe also the final responsibility to someone, because the power has a deeply vicarious structure. So you will never see who in the last end has the power. To move always in a dialectics between the two poles. And this is especially true to understand this very important character of the modern political theory, public law theory, the difference between constitutive and constituted power. But they also move in this circle. So apparently constituted power is founded by the constituent power, but then when you try to grasp it, you will see that there is an unceasing, continuous dialectical movement between the two powers. Because governmental power is essentially vicarious. So if I've chosen to, so this is the five character through which I try to define an act of governance. You will have understood it if I've chosen to locate my genealogy of modern governments in a theological context, this is because there the peculiar bipolar structure of governmental power is perfectly evident. One of the main results of my investigation is that the history of Western politics is the history of the crossing and intertwining of two divided and yet inseparable paradigms: reign and government, or kingdom and governments, the father and the son, sovereignty and economy, law and order, legitimacy and legality. And we can now better understand why the fundamental problem of Western public law has the form how to ground government in sovereignty, how to ground order in law, economical praxis in juridical patterns, legality in legitimacy. And it's a very big problem in political theory. Modern democracy can be seen from this perspective as the desperate attempt to link in a stable structure the two anarchical poles of the machine. But this is precisely why democracy is so fragile, always oscillating between a lack and an excess of government, always looking for a Holy Spirit or a charismatic principle that could be able to keep together the anarchical powers that it has inherited from Christian theology. With few exceptions, modern political scientists and political philosophers failed to confront both poles of the governmental machine. Beginning with Rousseau, modern theorists tend to consider sovereignty as the central political category and to reduce government to executive power. As a result, political philosophy, and this is especially true for the democratic tradition, fails to understand the real nature of government and focuses instead on universal problems such as law, state, sovereign body. What my investigation has shown is that, on the contrary, the real problem, the secret core of politics, is neither sovereignty nor law. It is government. It is not the king, but rather the minister. It is not God, but rather the angels. It is not law, but rather the police and the state of exception. Or, more precisely, it is the governmental machine that functions through the complicated system of relations that binds these two poles together. Because the punishment of the damned has to be carried on infinitely, so while in paradise angels work no more, in the hell the devils work a lot in order to execute the divine justice. There is also, because the study of theology is really amusing in some way, also there is a great discussion about the fact, are the holy in the heaven, will the holy in the heaven look at the punishment of the bad guys damned in the hell? And the answer is yes, and they will take joy from this. So, the second point, so this first point, important to me, the second point, as you know, the essential function and duty of the church is liturgy.